Hi, my name is Yasen Guev. Today I'm starting something new on my channel, doing each Friday videos in English. It will be like a short program with 3 topics, and you will find the video as a whole and also separate videos for each topic in my channel. So if you like it and you're interested in what I'm saying and what I'm showing, please subscribe to the channel. This Friday, I'm going to talk about first the tariffs and what are the major issues with them, how they will affect mostly in the beginning the United States, but afterwards, of course, the whole world. And what is the effect of the decision of imposing the tariffs on the price of oil and especially on the budget of Russia. And at the end, I will tell you a very personal story of an Olympic champion from 1982 that it's in prison in Russia for more than a year. And the court case is going very, very slowly. And he was proposed to go to war as a soldier in Ukraine in order the case to be dropped, but he refused. And that's why more than a year he is still in prison. And you will hear the latest update from his daughter. But let me start with the tariffs. First, a little bit of background. What was said by the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jay Powell. So, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said that he expects President Donald Trump's tariffs to raise inflation and lower growth, and indicated that the central bank won't move on interest rates until it gets a clearer picture on the ultimate impacts. What he says that the outlook right now it's highly uncertain. And the next words are direct quote from Powell. Our obligation is to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored and make certain that the one-time increase in the price level does not become an ongoing inflation problem. We're well positioned to wait for greater clarity before considering any adjustments to our policy stance. It is too soon to say that what will be the appropriate path for monetary policy. While tariffs are highly likely to generate at least a temporary rise in inflation, it is also possible that the effects could be more persistent. Avoiding that outcome will depend on keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored, on the size of the effects and on how long it takes for them to pass through fully to prices. Let me explain something. So in the beginning, after President Trump pushed the button on stopping the tariffs for 90 days, but of course not all tariffs were stopped. First, he increased to 125% the tariffs on China, which means embargo. Then he kept the 10% overall tariff for everybody. And then we have also in place the 25% on steel, aluminum, and cars. So that's why in the first day after the decisions, the markets were happy. Now they're not that happy because the issue is not resolved. First, those outstanding tariffs have an effect. Then we are not talking about lack of tariffs, but of stop for 90 days. So we don't have clarity. What this policy is doing, of course, the most important thing behind the decision to go on those political decisions and to introduce higher tariffs is to close the deficit of the US budget, which is great. From one point to get a little bit more money from the tariffs. On the other side, to have the Doge initiative headed by Elon Musk and his team and to reduce governmental spending. The problem is when you impose tariffs. So imagine that you import whatever, sneakers, you import any kind of equipment, for example, for fitness, doesn't matter what, from any country with a tariff. Let's say they have the 10% tariff. It means that when it gets to the US, the importer should pay this 10%, but afterwards, of course, he should get them back somehow, and the only way is to increase prices. The whole question is, if you don't increase prices, you must reduce your profit, your revenue. And of course, you have probably a partner in the US. You might decide to split it, not split it, depend on what is the negotiation between the two parties. Why actually Trump decided to pause the tariffs? Because what happened was that the bond market was hit. When you hit the bond market, it means that the interest paid by the state and will be higher on bonds. It means that will be even higher for anybody else from individual states in the US, and it will be even higher and higher and higher for companies. And then what happens? It happens that you introduce inflation. Inflation goes through the whole system, through the prices, and partially, probably later on, to salaries. And when you start producing whatever you produce in the US, it becomes not cheaper, but becomes awfully expensive. So if you are selling your product in the United States, probably you're kind of fine and it's okay. But you have problem to export your product to another country because it's too expensive. Even if the other country does not impose tariffs, your cost is too high. That's why bringing manufacturing back to the US is not that easy. It will be always more expensive. There was a reason companies went abroad to produce. And also, the other thing, it's not only goods, it's services. And if you don't look at the whole board and you don't add services, and there you have Microsoft, you have Apple, you have Meta, meaning Facebook, you have X, you have many others, then it's a totally different story. Because on services, there is a huge share of the United States all over the world. And then if you do the calculation of the trade deficit, including that, it's a totally different story. What it's done by introducing the tariffs is actually adding huge instability, and instability leads to reduction of investment. That's why nobody will be rushing to invest in the US soon. And right now I'm going to quote a very smart guy. I have some of his books. I read them, Ray Dalio, who is the founder of Bridgewater. What he said about the situation, because he, of course, made comments about the tariffs, but here I will quote something else. So, the massive tariffs announced by US President Donald Trump are just one part of a breakdown of the major monetary, political, and geopolitical orders, said Dalio. This sort of breakdown only occurs about once in a lifetime, but they have happened many times in history when similar unsustainable conditions were in place. Very little attention is being paid to the circumstances that caused them and the biggest disruptions that are likely ahead. And he listed 5. First, the monetary/economic order is breaking down because there is too much existing debt. The rates of adding to it are too fast. Second, the domestic political order is breaking down due to huge gaps in people's education levels, opportunity levels, productivity levels, income and wealth levels, and values. Third, the international geopolitical order is breaking down because the era of one dominant power, the United States, that dictates the order that other countries follow is over. Fourth, acts of nature, droughts, floods, and pandemics are increasingly disruptive. And fifth, amazing changes in technology, such as AI, will be highly impactful to all aspects of life. So uncertainty grows. I will not go in deeper into those things that Ray Dalio said, but there are major issues connected to all those processes that will make the world more uncertain in the near future. And if you follow the channel, you will listen to me speaking about all of them. Now, let's move to Russia and the effect of the tariffs / oil prices. What happened? Of course, when you have markets down, like the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, then, of course, people think that there will be slowdown. And many economists are speaking about stagflation, meaning low growth and high inflation, which means that companies will not produce as much, and they will not need as much oil, and the demand for oil goes down, and price for oil goes down too. That happened, of course. You might have followed Brent and other sorts of oil, but for Russia, they have a special sort of oil called Urals. So what is happening? On April 7, Kremlin announced that it was closely monitoring oil markets after the price of its key export-grade Urals crude fell below $50 a barrel. We are very closely monitoring the situation, which is currently characterized as extremely turbulent, tense, and emotionally charged, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told the Russian Interfax agency. Peskov attributed the situation, the price drop, to the U.S. Decision to impose tariffs on most countries in the world. Urals crude fell to just over $50 a barrel. That is well below the $70 a barrel benchmark used to plan Russia's 2025 budget. With oil and gas revenues accounting for nearly 30% of budget revenues, the price drop poses a significant problem. As early as late March, global oil prices were actually rising, driven by US sanctions on Iran and ongoing discussions about potential ceasefire in Russia's war in Ukraine, with Brent crude hitting a little bit more than $72 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate crude rose to 68.68 cents per barrel. However, Russian oil and gas revenues fell 17% year-on-year in March to $12.8 billion. The government lost an estimated $2.7 billion in tax revenue compared to March 2024, with oil and gas revenues accounting for a third of total of government income. I don't know if that was planned as an effect by the US administration. Probably it was not, but that's it. And as you hit Russia and you hit with the tariffs, their biggest partner right now, China, that probably will have some effect on the negotiations for a possible ceasefire and then permanent peace between Ukraine and Russia. But let's see. So far, the situation is that Russia has been hit and they have problems with their budget. And now let's move to the personal story of very, very famous in the past Russian athlete by the name Andrey Perlov. Now you see him on the screen as he was race walking on 50 kilometers and becoming Olympic champion in Barcelona in 1982. So right now he's 62 years old and lives with his family in Novosibirsk in Russia. What happened with him? He actually works as an executive director to a football club in this big city in Siberia. And according to some publications describing his case, he was in conflict with a very rich man in Novosibirsk. And this Mr. Taran that you see on the screen right now, they have some argument over hiring a stadium that Mr. Taran was in charge. The football team that was headed by Mr. Perlov was discussing to hire the stadium to play football games there, but they had some disagreement as the effect of the scandal between them. Actually, most probably, as Taran is having serious opportunities to influence the authorities. One morning, more than a year ago, on the 28th of March, Andrey Perlov was arrested and put in prison and investigated for stealing $32,000 US. Actually, the whole story is very strange because it's about money that should have been spent on taking care of a football pitch, and if they have been spent or not. And so far, his case is going very slowly. Based on publications in BBC and other media, he was offered to become soldier in Ukraine and the Russian army, and if he will do that, then the whole case will be stopped and he will be free after spending some time as a soldier in Ukraine. Of course, with the risk to get injured or killed while being there, and still he's in good shape probably, but he's 62 years old now. But he refused because he strongly believes that he's innocent. And now, a few days ago, his daughter, Alina Perlova, wrote the following, and I will read most of it on Facebook, about the case. Our news, March 28, a year passed since father's arrest. The investigator managed to close the case to the prosecutor's office at the last minute. The prosecutor's office went to court, but the hearings have not yet begun. The date was set only today, and still on March 24th, a hearing was held. According to the Interception, and that arrest was extended for another 6 months until September. By law, a person in the status of a suspect and an accused cannot be in custody for more than 1 year unless the case is not particularly serious, but the judge and the prosecutor are not particularly interested in this evidence. Everyone who wrote to me, okay, he'll sit for a year, then you have to let it go. Warm greetings to you. That was taken back to detention from court, where he asked to be shown the court ruling on what basis he remains under arrest. They must do it immediately, and always did it immediately. The setting as an evil has happened somewhere, and for several days he was sitting in a cage. It is not clear why. Then the management of the detention got fussy, bringing a decision from the court clearly signed with a backwards number without an outgoing number. It happens, yes. Probably then someday it will be possible to even punish 200 rubles in compensation for illegal detention. But in court, during the break, we were first able to talk to him through the bars. Before that, the investigator didn't even allow us to enter the hall. I understand that outside our adventures seem like some kind of gruesome, lightless nightmare. Of course, we still hoped that they would let it go, but that's life and that's not anymore. You can also live like this, despite the pain. Sisyphus smiles as he descends the mountain. Yes, that lost weight, but he still works out 3 times a day. Soon he will be sleeping in planks and splits. About help, if you happen to have time to write a letter to the detention 1, Novosibirsk, Perlov Andrey Borusovich, born 1961, or the Attorney General, we will be very grateful. Or come to court on April the 10th, how the sessions are open, and so everything is normal with us. It can be worse. There is no need to say anything more. There are people that go on YouTube or on TV channels and do deep dive political analysis on the situation in Russia. But I think that this story tells it all. So far that's all for me, and I hope to see you around, or probably it will be better to say that you will see me also next Friday. Have a nice weekend.